So we were discussing chapter 2 freedom, and we had to do this part. Swaraj, a concept analogous to freedoms. It's a Swaraj. A concept is similar to that of freedom in Indian political thought. Is Swaraj, that Indian political thought, freedom means Swaraj. Okay, the term Swaraj incorporates uh, within it two words. Swa matlab self, Raj means rule. तो मतलब it's talking about self rule. Okay, so then we see it can be understood to mean that both the rule of the rule of the self and rule over self. मतलब whatever the rule is, that will be over oneself, and everything that will be done by itself only. मतलब that mm, being, or that thing. Swaraj, in the context of the freedom struggle in India, referred to the freedom as a constitutional and political demand. See, they've taken here freedom as a constitutional and political demand, and as a value of social collective level. So here we are, taking this thing Swaraj as a collective, socially collective. Okay, and whether it's talking, then where it's talking about rule of the self and that. Swaraj, that is why Swaraj was such an important rallying cry in the freedoms movement. Okay, inspiring Tilak's famous statement, which was made by Tilak, that Swaraj is my birthright and I shall have it. Any day, you'll see many posters also with that saying, in reference to many contexts, and it is even true in today's world, today's time. It is the understanding of Swaraj as rule over the self that was highlighted in Mahatma Gandhi's, uh, in his work, Hind Swaraj, where he state it is Swaraj when we learn to rule ourselves. Swaraj is not just freedom but liberation in redeeming one's self respect, self responsibility. It's talking about self respect, it's talking about self responsibility, and it's talking about capacities for self realization from institutions of dehumanization. Understanding the real self and its relation to communities and society is critical to the project of attaining Swaraj. Okay, so here Mahatma Gandhi has also given his viewpoints on Swaraj. Uh, okay, Gandhiji believed that development that follows would liberate the individual and collective potentialities guided by the principle of justice. So that's what Gandhiji believed, that development, that any development that kinds of, any development that happens, that follows a liberate and both individual and the collective potentials, which is guided by the principles of justice. Then that is the true form of liberation, or Swaraj here when we are talking in this context. Needless to say, such an understanding is as relevant to the 21st century as it was when Gandhiji wrote the this his book, Hind Swaraj, in 1909. Okay, so we have studied this portion, we completed. We've to discuss the sources of constraints. Last time when we discussed, we talked about that there are some restrictions that comes. We're not allowed to do whatever comes in our mind. We all are bound by some sort of restrictions, and which is for everybody. So let's see what are the sources of constraints. Restrictions on the freedom of individuals may come from domination or external control. Such restrictions may be imposed by force, or they may be imposed by the government through laws. Lot of times we see that some restrictions are put by government or by force, which embody the power of the rulers over the people, and which may have the backing of force. They do it through laws and etc. Okay, And this was the form of constraints, constraints represented by colonial rulers over their subjects. Who were the subjects? The citizens of that particular country, who were more treated as subjects, by the colonial these rulers who made these countries their colony, or by the system of apartheid in South Africa. We also saw in you know. System discrimination system based on the basis of race in South Africa, where white domination was seen over people of other colors. That system was apartheid. We saw in that some form of government may be inevitable, but if the government is a democratic one, the members of the state could retain some control over their rulers. Of course, some control by the government is sure to happen, and you cannot control. But if it is a democratic country like ours, then we could retain some control over our rulers, who are governing us here. That is what it meant. That is why democratic government is considered to be an important means of protecting the freedom of people. But constraints on freedom can also result from social inequalities. We've talked so much about social inequalities, social divisions, and etc., of the kind implicit in the caste system, or which result from extreme economic inequality. We've also talked about this division, when we talked about inequality, or when we talk about equality. Equality shouldn't only be there in the political sphere, but also in their economic and social sphere, okay, spheres of their lives in a society. The quotation from Subhash Chandra Bose on freedom draws attention to the need for the country to work, or to remove such constraints or restrictions. This is what they've written: girls and boys should be free to decide whom they wish to marry. Parents should have no say in this matter. So, do you think that whoever is the girl and the couple who wants to get married, they should have the free wish to get married, and nobody should interfere in between them? Yes, if two adults want to marry themselves, and and want to spend their rest of life together, they are free to do so. But the culture of India is that, of course, you are in love and Filana and Dimkana, that is there. But also India's, if we take into account the culture of India, we also know that uh, we as Indians are so much bound by our cultural values that we tend to respect the decision of our parents also. That is true. But nothing, whether this is one aspect. The other aspect that I want to say is that nothing should be forced, because things which are done out of force, out of compulsion, they lead nowhere. The end is always bad for some, such things. And of course, you should, if you want to marry somebody, you're free to do that, but also you should listen to your parents, because even they have experience, and they would never want to do something bad to you or bad for you. So whatever decision you make, or whomever you want to marry, or falana dimkana, whatever, marriage is just an option here, case example that we're taking. You should always be able to take a informed choice, all the pro and cons. Of course, marriage, everything there is a risk, and you should know, and you should be able to even accept that, because a future is not certain. You cannot assure from 10 years from now what will happen. But yes, if you taken up a commitment, you should be have you should be bold enough to even stand by it if you believe in that. For example, Nelson Mandela believed in freedom and everything. He believed in equality and everything. He spent 28 years of his youth life in jail for that belief. So just imagine that. So that's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, now let's see. Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, what did he say, on freedom? If we are to bring about a revolution of ideas, we have first to hold up before us an ideal of, which will galvanize our whole life. Galvanize, matlab give direction, or give catalyze our life. The ideal is freedom, but freedom is a word which has varied connotations, and even in our country, the conception of freedom has undergone a process of evolution. By freedom, I mean all round of freedom. That is freedom from the freedom for the individual as well as for the society, freedom for the rich as well as for the poor, freedom for men as well as women, freedom for all individuals and for all classes. This freedom implies not only emancipation from political bondages, but also equal distribution of wealth, abolition of caste barriers we have, and social inequities, and destruction of communalism and religious intolerance. You should be always be tolerant to other person's religion. If you are Hindu and the other person is Sikh, you both are right at your own place. Nobody is good or bad. Okay, never take a two the goal of all the relations is to bring peace, to bring um comfort in your life, and not to do harm to each other. And if you think that religion is teach any religion is teaching you that, then you should look into the look carefully, and try to introspect that, are you even reading something that is good, or are you just misled? Okay, because the idea of all the religion is to bring peace, and not this hatred among people or so. Okay, this is an ideal which may appear utopian or hard-headed men, and to hard-headed men and women, but this ideal alone can appease the hunger in the soul. uh, that's what they're saying. And that is very true. When you start to introspect, things, see things on a broader level, you will realize a lot of things. President. So this was a presidential address to the Subhash to the students conference held in Lahore, at Lahore, sorry, on 19th October 1929. So this is what Mr. Subhash Chandra said on freedom. So why do we need constraints? So let's see that why do we need these kinds of restrictions? uh, we cannot live in a world where there are no constraints. We need some constraints, or else society would descend into chaos. Differences may exist between people regarding their ideas, you know opinions. They may have conflicting ambitions also. Was They may compete to control the scarce resources. There are numerous reasons why um, disagreement may develop in a society, which may express themselves through open conflict. We see people around us ready to fight for all kinds of reasons, ranging from serious to trivial. Rage while driving on the roads, fighting over parking spaces, quarrel over housing or land, disagreement regarding whether a particular film should be screened. All these and many more issues can lead to conflict, and we have seen it even now. It's happening. And violence, and perhaps even loss of life. So these all lead to conflict and violence, and even loss of life. People die. Therefore, every society needs some mechanism to control violence and to set the dispute. So long as we are able to respect each other's views and do not attempt to impose our views on others, we may be able to live freely and within minimum constant. So that is very important, to have peace in this world, in a society. It's very important that some restrictions are made there, because we know people, if we allow people to do whatever they want to do, then it's all finished, game over there and there. Okay. Ideally, if we talk about ideally, in a free society, we should be able to hold our views. Of course, we should be able to express our views, develop our own rules of living and pursue our choices. You should be able to make your choices, and you should have the freedom to decide on your own how you want to live and falana. But the creation of such a society too requires some constraints. At the very least, it requires that we will be willing to respect differences of views, opinions, and beliefs. Okay, if you think that tea is very good, tasty, you enjoy this beverage, okay, or Similarly, a coffee lover cannot be wrong because that person loves coffee and you love tea. You both are very different person. You will some It's your choice of what you want to drink. So it doesn't mean that the person who, if you are a tea drinker, so a person who drinks coffee is bad. That does not mean. Strong commitments to our beliefs requires that we must oppose all those who differ from and reject our views. We all, most of the times we think that whoever is, have different views and everything, we tend to reject their views. We see their ways of living as unacceptable or even undesirable. We don't treat them good. Under such circumstances, we need some legal and political restraints to ensure that differences may be discussed. If you have any differences with anybody, discuss them out, debate them without one group coercively imposing its views on the other. Worse still, we may be confronted with attempts to bully or harass us so that we conform to their choices. If so, we may want stronger support from the law to ensure that my freedom is protected. The important question, however, is to identify which constraints on freedom are necessary and justifiable and which are not. What sort of authority external to the individual may justifiably, say that what can be done and what cannot. Further, are there any areas of a life and action that should be left free from all the constraints? So we are saying, for this society to run and falana dimkana, we are saying that we need a mechanism. There should be a way, which controls, because we know that we are human beings and we will tend to make mistakes. And if we are given like a free choice, we are going to, end up destroying not only our life but life of other people also. Because we know that we all, because this has happened in the past also. And so that's why we are questioning, okay, that okay, we are talking about that constraints should be there in life, and because everybody, otherwise there will be no uh, at the end, otherwise it will result in a chaos. And so, but then we are saying, also questioning that which are the parts of life where no constraints should be there. So you tell me, which are the parts do you think where no constraints, restrictions should be there? Let's look at this topic. Okay, this is liberalism. What is that? Okay, I hope it's clear because the focus is going. Wait. Okay. Let's see this topic. That's liberalism. Liberalism. Okay. When we say that someone's parents are liberal, we usually mean that they are very tolerant. As a political ideology, liberalism has been identified with tolerance as a value. So they take tolerance as a value. Liberals have often defended the right of a person to hold and express his or her opinion and beliefs, even when they disagree with them. Liberals, as in, like, even if you don't accept the view of other person, because they might be different, because it might be different than what you believe or what you think, but still you let that person, express their opinion, then you are a liberal, because you're letting somebody else express their opinions and you are okay, you're tolerant to that person expressing. But that is not all that is there to liberalism. There are other aspects also. And liberalism is not the only modern ideology that supports tolerance. What is more distinctive about modern liberalism is its focus on the individual. So here what we're focusing is on the individual. For liberals, entities like family, society, community have no value in themselves, but only if these are valued by the individual. They would say, for example, that the decision to marry someone should be taken by the individual rather than by the family, caste, or community. Liberals tend to give priority to individual liberty over values like equality. So that's what we are pay attention to this line, okay? Values like over tend to give priority to individual liberty over values like equality. They also tend to be suspicious of political authority. So this is, this aspect that sometimes liberals, because they give more um, acceptance to the value of or not, they give more, sorry, accept no, acceptance will be a wrong term here. They give more priority to individualism rather than, concepts like values like equality and that thing, so that is the reason they are often even taken as suspicious of any they take the public authority suspiciously. They take it that historically liberalism favored free market and minimal role of the state. So they believe in free market and minimal role should be there of the government. However, present day liberalism acknowledges a role for welfare state and accepts the need for measure to reduce both social and economic inequalities. So can you see that how the meaning of liberalism, it's changing a bit, where we are talking about that, liberals uh, are often defended, they have they uh, tolerate when somebody others person's view are different to them. Then they give more priority to individual liberty over concepts like and values like equality. Then we saying they even take they prefer free market and believe in minimal role of the government. And then we also talk that, in the present state, like in the present sorry in the present times, the liberalism also acknowledges a role for welfare state and accepts the need for measure, to reduce both social and in economic inequalities. So that is also there, okay? We are seeing that aspects also. So what is harm principle? So that time when we started that chapter, we said that we, after studying this chapter, we'll also get to know about harm principle. So let's see that. To answer these questions satisfactorily, we have to address the issue of limits, competence, and consequences of the imposition. If something is being imposed, what are the limits of it? What are the what is competence of it, and what is the consequence of this of the imposition? Okay. We also have to engage with another issue that John Stuart Mill stated so eloquently in his essay on liberty. So this was an essay on liberty by John Stuart Mill. In his in the discussion in political theory, it is called harm principle. Let us quote his statement and then try to explain it. Okay, so let's see how it goes about. The sole end for which mankind are warranted, individually or collectively, in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number is self protection. That the only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. So that's what they are talking about. One concept they are saying about is self protection, that in interfering with the liberty of action of any of their number is self the sole end, well, the ultimate end, or the only aim, the destination is of course self protection. And if you are using this thing, um, power is used, can be rightfully exercised over any member in a civilized community, any, against, if it is against his will, then it should only be done to prevent harm to others, if there are chances that of one person causing harm to the other. Hmm? Mill introduces here an important distinction, He distinguishes between self-regarding actions, that is those actions that have consequences only for the individual actor and nobody else, and other regarding actions, that is those actions they have consequences for others. He argues that with respect to actions or choices that affect only oneself, self regarding actions, the state or any other external authority has no business to interfere. So if you are talking that, he says that if in an action that is done by an individual, and it is only going to uh, you know um, this thing this thing this action or choice that make this thing happens, and whatever is the consequence result, and that only affects that individual only, then it's then that is different. Then in that case, no individual should interfere in that person. Or put it simply, simple language, it would be, that's my business, I will do what I like. Or how does it concern to you if it does not affect you? So that's what they are saying, that that's my business, I will do what I like. Or how does it concern you? This is not even going, my actions are not even going to affect you. So that's what they are talking about, self regarding. In contrast, with respect to actions that have consequences for others, actions which may cause harm to others, there's some case of external interference. After all, if your actions cause harm, then surely I must be saved from such harm by some external authority. In this case, it is the state which can constrain a person from acting in a way that causes harm to somebody else. So here we are talking about two things. One is self protection, where it is about particularly about one individual. And a second thing that we are talking about here in this harm principle is to prevent harm to others. So they are saying, if your actions are only going to affect or impact only you, then it's okay, then it is my business, it is not going to impact any other person, and nobody should interfere it. But if my action is going to affect any other individual or any other people or a group or everything, there should be some external constraint. Maybe the, for example, here authority, we are saying that, here we are saying the government, that should be there, and some restriction should be there, because your action and the action of an individual is going to cause harm to other people, and that we wouldn't want. So here we are talking about one self regarding, and then we are talking other regarding. Okay. However, as freedom is at the core of human society, is also crucial for a dignified human life. It should not only be constrained in special circumstances. The harm caused must be serious. For minor harm, Mill recommends only social disapproval and not the force of law. For example, playing of loud music in an apartment building, okay, should bring only social disapproval from the other residents of the building. They should not involve the police. They should indicate their disapproval or their inconvenience that playing loud music has caused them, by perhaps refusing to greet the person who plays the music, disregarding the harm it is um, it is causing others. The harm that playing loud music causes is that of preventing those in other apartments from talking or sleeping or listening to their own music. This is a minor harm and should only provoke social disapproval. So here, I'll explain. Okay, here they are talking about two kinds. Okay, it is not a fit case for legal punishment. Constraining actions by the force of law should only happen when the other regarding actions cause serious harm to definite individuals. Otherwise, society must bear the inconvenience in the spirit of protecting freedom. So, one this thing line we are saying that, okay, this line that we are saying that, here also now we are talking about two. One is minor harm. For example, if somebody in a building, in your building, is playing loud music and it's causing inconvenience to you, then it should be a social disapproval and falana, and it shouldn't involve a police and everything. But if there's something, if this harm which is like a serious harm to one individual, then only some form of strict constraints should be there. Okay, because otherwise, in the case of minor harm like listening loud music, then it should be only taken that you should bear the inconvenience in the spirit of protecting freedom. Okay, but then also the question comes, remember we studied this line that if you want your right to be respected, then you are even obliged to respect other person's right, right? You remember, this was this line that was quoted. So how does it, now we are talking about to harm, whether it's a minor harm or a serious harm. One is minor and the other is serious in the other regarding actions. So how does that fit in that, if so every day, if someone or the other person in the entire building, one day karke, if people keep playing loud music every day, then in the name of, just in the name of spirit of protecting their person, that person's right, we will always be in the inconvenience. That the aspect is also there. So think on that line also, what would you would have done. Okay. Okay, do you get it? People should be ready to tolerate different ways of life, different points of view, and different interests, so long as they do not cause harm to others. But such tolerance need not to be extended to views and actions which may put people in danger or foment hatred against them. Hate campaigns cause serious harm to the freedom of others, and actions that cause serious harm are actions on which constraints can be imposed. But we must make sure that the constraints imposed are not so severe that they destroy freedom itself. For example, we must not ask for life imprisonment for those who only conduct hate campaign. Maybe maybe some restrictions on their movement or some curtailment of the right to hold public meeting can be extended, can be considered, especially if they continue to carry out on this campaign in spite of warning by the state to desist from conducting such campaigns. So here what we are talking about is, hate campaign. Of course, if there are hate campaign, then there should be some constant, because some hate campaigns can seriously lead to some serious harm. Okay, and especially it can lead to security issues and peace in the society and everything. So there should be constraints on that. But a hate campaign, a person who's involved in hate campaign shouldn't be sent for life in prison for this for this thing. Can be constraints like movement, some curtailment on, he should not be allowed to hold public meetings or that. In the constitutional discussions in India, the term used for such justifiable constraint is reasonable restrictions, and that's what I have been from starting telling you about this. Reasonable restrictions, the restrictions may be there, but they must be reasonable, that is capable of being defended by a person, not excessive, not out of proportion to the action being restricted. Okay. Since then it would impinge on the general condition of freedom in society. Do you get it? We must not develop a habit of imposing restrictions, since such a habit is detrimental to freedom. And this, also, we shouldn't make it a habit that we start imposing restrictions every time, because then it will be detrimental for our freedom, our value of freedom. Okay.